Welcome to today's lesson. Today's lesson is on revenue and expenses and budgeting. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Eyanson. Let's talk about the objectives for today's class. First, we're going to understand the skills to work in sport finance. Next, we're going to have an understanding of what revenue and expenses are. And then we're going to take a look at and try and understand budgets, costs, and other type of budgets. Let's talk about the skills necessary for working in sport finance. Finance involves three primary areas: money and capital markets, investments, and financial management. This is from Brigham and Edhart in 2005. The authors continued with four ideas of what the duties of someone who works in sports finance are, and their responsibilities are forecasting and planning to help lay the foundation for future success, investing in major assets such as plants and equipment, coordinating other employees and managers to ensure that the individuals are working in the most effective manner, and managing business interaction with financial markets, determining how much money to raise and in what manner. Let's talk about revenue and expenses. Revenue is money coming into a sport business, and expenses are the costs of doing business. Here are a list of revenue and expenses. This really looks at it like a high school program. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the revenue of, let's say, school and state taxes, federal taxes, state taxes, and of course participation fees, because a lot of programs now have the kids pay to play. You also have booster clubs and attendance for games and fundraising events to bring in money to keep the program running. And of course, we have expenses, which a lot of times outweigh the revenue in most cases, but most schools try to stay as close as possible in expenses and revenue: travel costs, utility costs, referee and umpire costs, salary and benefits, and of course, even down to simple as office supplies. We're moving into the college example now. In 2017, the University of Texas Longhorns had a revenue of $215 million and expenses of $207. So basically, they had a positive revenue flow. In the FBS, the football bowl subdivision, which has 10 conferences and over 130 schools, only 20 schools were in a positive revenue flow, whereas all of the Division II, NCAA Division II schools had a positive revenue flow, and their revenues exceeded their expenses. We're taking a look at the difference in the revenue and expenses for the Texas Longhorns again in this example. If you look at 2016 versus 2017, they reported 188 million in revenue in 2016 and 215 in 2017. So of course that's a $27 million increase. You can see the ticket revenue and the royalties and the contributions far exceeded the numbers from 2016 to 2017. The expenses also grew, as you can see in severance pay, because you see that went from 5.7 million to 9.2 million because they paid Charlie Strong a severance package of over $7.1 million that year. So that outlay was a great expense. You can also see that the salaries and game day operations went up. So there are three takeaways that I found from this slide. The first takeaway is the revenue stream did not only come from the football team, but it also came from events and concerts at the school venues. The second one was, even though there was a significant difference in the amount of expenses, such as facilities and game day operations, the revenue still increased. And with the continued positive revenue, the school was able to pay higher salaries or create more jobs at the school. And I think that's a pretty dynamic point in terms of revenue and expenses, being able to give, you're basically giving back to the community because you're hiring more bodies. The next section we're going to talk about is budgeting, okay? Budgeting is a roadmap where the sport business spends its money. In essence, a budget shows where the money comes from and where it goes. It tracks all of the revenue and expenses for the organization. In the end, we're trying to spend as little as possible to gain the most revenue. And of course, budgets can be formed as an organization for a season, for a whole year, or it can be done for long range planning for multiple years. And it's very important to know that all the stakeholders need to have a say in the budget. In terms of actual budgets, we're going to look at two. First one is the cash budget and the operating budget. The textbook notes that these are the most mostly used and some of the more important ones. The cash budget is an estimate of the cash position of the organization. How much money do we have to pay the bills? The operating budget is the estimates of cost of doing business. Where are we spending the money to operate in the sport? There are costs, basically fixed, variable, and administrative. Okay. To give you an example, variable costs are the cost that vary with sales. Do sales go up and down? And the sales department will put together a budget for this. Or administrative costs, which can include wages and benefits to certain employees, such as the accounting department. Other expenses, administrative expenses, could be wages, building rent, insurance, subscriptions, and utilities, even office supplies. It can either be placed as a general expense or an administrative expense. Other budgets, such as sales budgets, labor budgets, expense budgets, and capital budgets, are all of them. Example of a capital budget would be as if we're at a university, we're going to decide to either upgrade our stadium or destroy the stadium we have and build a brand new stadium. All of the capital improvements and the expenses that go along with building a new stadium would be a budget within itself, or budget within the main budget for the future. So as we kind of bring this to a close, we looked at the skills to working in sport finance. We looked at revenue and expenses, the different types of revenue expenses, and we had a great example with the Texas Longhorns. We then also looked at budgeting and different types of budgets. In terms of budgeting, the most important factor of the budget process is to implement decisions to further the goals and objectives of the sport and or the organization. Are there any questions? Since there are no questions, we're going to look at the homework and what to look forward to for our next meeting. For the homework, you're going to download the budgeting Excel form that's available to you in the classroom, and also watch the directions video. The directions video is very important because it's going to give you a great deal of insight. The directions are also in the syllabus. Either prepare a budget that's either in the positive or the negative using the directions that you're given. And then you're going to write up a 2 to 3 page paper based on the directions you go, either a positive cash flow, positive revenue flow, or a negative revenue flow. And please, again, the directions give you a greater detail of how to do that. Preparing for our next meeting, watch the Chapter 4 video, read Chapter 4, so you're prepared and have an understanding of what you're doing. In terms of today's video, if there's anything that you want to research deeper or need understanding, please go to the syllabus and look in the optional reading area, and I've placed a number of great articles that I found on the topic of budgeting and revenue and expenses for organizations. And here are our references. Thank you. Looking forward to talking to you at our next meeting. If you have any questions, please feel to call, text, or email, and I will answer any questions you have. And see you next time, and have a wonderful day.